Jenny, back in about 1990, if I remember correctly, you and Tos Gascoigne published an article about incentives and impediments for scientists in engaging with the mass media. And I remember reading that article with great interest at the time and referring back to it many times over the years. But now it's more than 20 years later. And I want to maybe ask you to briefly summarize what that was about, and if you think it has changed, and what is the current situation as far as this relationship between scientists and journalists is concerned.
Yes, it was an article that we published in Science Communication about 20 years ago, actually. And what it was that we were commissioned by the Australian government, who knew that we were running media skills workshops for scientists, to go around and find out what are the impediments and incentives for scientists to communicate using the media. And so what we did was, we were both working at CSIRO at the time, and we went to largely CSIRO scientists in a number of capital cities of Australia and some big regional cities, and we conducted focus groups.
Okay.
And we conducted focus groups with two types of scientists: those that were very experienced with the media, had had a lot of interactions with the media, and those who were less experienced. And we found as a result of that experienced scientists use the media as a tool. They saw it as valuable to their research and useful. We found that inexperienced scientists were very fearful of the media, saw them as more trouble than they were worth, and were afraid of media interaction in many cases. And we also found that for both groups, that doing media work was seen to be as neutral or negative towards career prospects within the organisation, and that the organisation still saw publications rather than media or other forms of communication as being important to their career and their promotion prospects.
Okay. They all sort of publish or perish.
Yes, absolutely. Now, do you think things have changed? I don't, sorry.
I think there's, in my own opinion, it's like the acceptance of science communication as a strategic activity for researcher has certainly gained some acceptance, but there's still a huge emphasis on scientific peer-reviewed publications rather than more popular engagement type of activities. Yes, and so it's interesting, this dynamic that you also see in the science communication world. People are actually calling now for ways to recognize and incentivize science communication and not just scientific communication.
Yeah, well, I've actually seen in that 20 years as well, since doing this research, the rise of science communicators and also the rise of training programs for scientists in how to communicate using the media or other forms. And so because of that, I actually think that there are now scientists who are more skilled at using the media. And that was actually one thing we found in our study as well, that training actually made scientists feel more comfortable with using the media. There are now also, I believe, many science communicators who are skilled at working with scientists and the media to help that process happen smoother than it used to be able to. So that I think scientists are less afraid, but I don't know that the incentives are there yet with the organisations in the way that they should be. There is increasing emphasis on it, and some research organisations say you need to build communication into your research proposal. But I think at the end of the day, that's not evaluated enough yet, or monitored enough, or enforced enough in terms of how then it is implemented once the research funding has been granted to a body, at least not in Australia.
The one thing that I think that maybe have changed a bit, or has changed a bit more, is that it's no longer seen as a negative, depending on how the scientist handles it. Sometimes scientists can still be criticized for being too much in the limelight, especially if it's maybe a controversial topic. But I think that some researchers are now actually worried that some scientists may, be forced by the universities to seek media coverage in order to get more publicity and exposure for the university. Do you think there's a danger there?
Absolutely. I mean, I'd like to see more scientists talking about their research, not their organisation so much. I mean, really, the organisation image is a spin-off from that. The story is about science.
Shouldn't be the primary driver behind the communication.
Not of research, no. Not of research findings, I think.
Yeah.
I think an organisation's standing can be based on the quality of the research it does, but let's hear about the quality of the research, particularly universities and research organisations.
So if in your training workshops or your encounters with scientists and maybe clients that you work with around the world, if there are scientists that are particularly negative or reluctant or almost dismissive of the media, how do you deal with that to maybe motivate them, show them that they can actually benefit from it, and that there is something in it for them as well as research scientists?
Well, we've had people coming to our media skills workshops who obviously didn't want to be there. They were told they had to be there. And generally over the course of one, sometimes if we're lucky, 2 days, we bring in working journalists and they interact with those people. We also show them how the media works. And scientists are logical people. Once they realise some of these things, they actually come on board with it. And I have seen the body language and the attitudes of scientists change within a day based on their experience with the media. So I do think interaction and experience with the media can help. It doesn't always work. There are always some scientists that are never going to change their mind about the media, and you can't win everyone, and not everyone's going to be good at the media regardless of what training they've received. However, another thing that I try and do is to work with such scientists to get a positive story out and then to document the benefits of that, media experience. I remember CSIRO did a survey of all the researchers who'd had media releases written about them over a course of a year and about the benefits of it. And I mean, I think it was something like over 70% said they'd got extra funding because of the research. And one person said they got over $1.5 million or something. But a surprising amount, I think it was something like about a quarter of them said they had new collaboration because of the media coverage they'd had. So I think the spin-offs from that sort of media work and communication can actually benefit the science more than they think. I've even had scientists say to me that after being interviewed by a journalist, they've changed the focus of their research question.
Oh, wow, okay.
Because the sort of questions they ask are different to ones their colleagues would ask. So I think it's demonstrating some of those benefits can win those people over.
Can win them over.